Welcome back to Two Guys in a Game Shop. My name's Phil.
I'm John.
And today we're going to talk about A Touch of Evil. Now this game is a gothic horror type game that plays 2 to 8 players, though you can play it solo, just with multiple characters, and generally takes an hour or 2 to play, but it can take up to 3 hours if you're playing with all the expansions for the game.
The game can be played in 3 different modes. You can play it cooperatively, you can play it as teams, or you can play it competitively against each other. The game also features in it 4 villains and their various minions, and at the beginning of the game you will choose one of the villains and their minions to play against.
So we're going to discuss and show what all comes in this game, and basically show you all the expansions as well.
We'll now explain the pieces to A Touch of Evil, starting with our hero. Each hero has a corresponding board that goes to them. There's also a miniature that will also go with whoever you picked as your hero.
Here we have the villains that are included in this game. Just in the base game you end up with the werewolf, the vampire, the spectral horseman, aka the headless horseman, and the scarecrow. Each villain has different minions. These are the minions over here, and they have a specific minion chart that corresponds with each particular villain.
There's of course the game board, which has along with it, for every of the 4 corner locations, a deck of cards that will correspond to when you go to that location. There's also the village elders and their accompanying secret cards. Each elder at the beginning of the game will get secrets that'll go underneath them.
And here we have event cards and mystery cards. These are used to provide additional challenges in the game as you go along. We also have the rule book and its very own soundtrack designed specifically for the game.
A word about the soundtrack. When Phil first told me about that, I was less than impressed. Actually, after hearing it, it really sets a really good ambiance for the game. They did a really good job on this, not pure cheese like a lot of other games I've seen. So at the beginning of your turn, you roll the movement dice. In this case I have a 4. You don't have to move your maximum number. You can move as little or as much of the roll that you want to do. In this case I'll choose to move 1. I'll move 1 space. So now I'll draw my card. In this case it is Crossroads. So gives you a little bit of flavor on there, which is nice. Traveling the path, you come to an old crossroads. An owl sits atop the signpost, watching you intently. Continuing around the next bend, you stop suddenly. In the same crossroads lies before you, the owl stares into your soul. So now I make a Spirit 4+ test and gain 1 investigation for every 4+ roll. So what I'll do now is look at my Spirit. I have 2 spirits, so I get 2 dice. And for every 4 or higher on here, I'm going to get an investigation. In this case, I kind of lucked out. I rolled 2 5s, so I'll get 2 investigation. And the card is now resolved.
So now on my turn, I would also roll a die for movement. And this time I roll a 5, so I'm going to move mine just 3 spaces, move to the abandoned keep here. And in the abandoned keep, I would draw a card, and I get Shackled Spirit. Bound to roam until another soul can be found to take its place. This has 4 fight dice and takes 4 wounds. You must use Spirit instead of combat when fighting the Shackled Spirit. You may discard an ally to automatically defeat this minion. If defeated, gain 6 investigation. So I have to look at my character, and instead of using combat, which is 2, I have to use Spirit, which is 1. So when I roll, I would roll 1 die, and I need a 5 or a 6 to do a hit to it. I rolled a 2, so I would miss. And then somebody else would roll 4 dice for the 4 fight dice of the Shackled Spirit and hit on a 5 or a 6. In that case, I would take 3 wounds. So I put these wound markers on, and by taking 3 wounds, I am then knocked unconscious. When I'm knocked unconscious, I am taken back to the town hall, and there is where I will start the mystery phase. After every player has taken a turn, you then start the mystery phase. Now, on the mystery phase, any heroes that were knocked out will be revived. So my hero would be revived. When that happens, I would remove the 3 wounds that I have, and I roll a die, and the number that I roll is the number of investigation or other items that I would lose. In this case, I don't have any, so I don't lose anything. But now I am back on my feet.
After that, then if the villain had taken damage, he will heal some of his damage. Since our villain hasn't taken it, we don't need to do that. But now we can go ahead and draw and resolve a mystery card. So we'll draw. In this case, it's Growing Strength. So this card plays on the villain and gives him an extra wound. So we put that over here, giving him an extra wound.
If you are playing a cooperative game, you would, before drawing the mystery card, you would roll on this cooperative mystery phase chart. In it, various things can happen, such as darkness falling, which moves the shadow track 2 spaces further towards darkness. Or you could have minions attack, in which case you would roll on the minion chart and place minions on the board, which cause further complications for the heroes. If a person has a lair card, this is how they find the villain's location and fight the villain in a showdown. So if they are in the location of their lair card, in this case it's the Old Woods, and Carl is in the Old Woods, he can pay investigation equal to the number on the card. In this case it's 2, so you'd pay 2 investigation.
Carl pays his 2 investigation.
And that starts the showdown.
So then next we can form a hunting party. So other people can join in against the villain.
If you're playing cooperative.
Also, we would reveal secrets on all the town elders at this time.
And you would do that if you formed a hunting party and chose them to assist you. You can choose up to 2 town elders to be in your hunting party.
We would also do accusations.
And that is if you're playing competitively, other players can accuse town elders, and if they are evil, they may join the villain and make him even more difficult to defeat.
And after all that's resolved, we'll then start the showdown fight rounds. So what you'll look at, in the case of mine, I have 4 combat dice. So I'm going to roll 4 combat dice against the vampire. Looking at this, I have a 5 and a 6 that would successfully hit.
And that would do 2 hits. This normally takes 5 hits, but because he's got growing strength, that means he takes 6 hits, so he is still alive. Now, the vampire has special abilities. In this case, he has a mist form. It says, becoming an ethereal cloud of vapor is one of the strongest tools in the vampire's arsenal. The vampire ignores any hit done to him on the die 6 roll of 5+. So since he took 2 hits, the vampire would roll 2 dice. In this case, he rolled 5 on both of them, so he takes no hits instead. With that done, the vampire then gets to attack Carl back. And he's got 5 attacks against Carl. He only rolled 2 5s, so that's 2 hits done to Carl.
Carl, however, may ignore the first hit taken each fight round. So one of these hits I'll actually ignore then.
This would continue for round after round of combat until either the villain is defeated, or if the villain escapes, or if the heroes decide to retreat from the fight. Now, if you're playing an advanced version of the game, the vampire uses the advanced abilities. In this case, it has the special ability of slips into the night. If no wounds are done to the vampire during a fight round, he immediately escapes on the die roll of a 4+, canceling the showdown. A hero may discard keyword fire item to prevent this. So I would then roll for the vampire, and a roll of 1, so the vampire would not escape in this particular round of combat. So the showdown would continue with Carl attacking and the vampire attacking back until one of those conditions is attained. One way that you can lose in this game is to have the darkness track move towards darkness, and then when it reaches the end and progresses beyond, everyone loses and the town is swallowed by darkness.
Similarly, if all the characters are KO'd at the same time, the game also ends.
Finally, the one way to win the game is actually to defeat the villain. If you're playing competitively, when one character is attacking, they have to inflict the number of hits that the villain has in order to defeat him, plus any bonuses they might have. If you happen to be playing cooperatively, the villain's wounds are multiplied by the number of heroes against it. So in this case, with 2 heroes, instead of 5 wounds, it would take 10 wounds plus 1 for 11 total in order to defeat the vampire.
Touch of Evil, I think, is an excellently made game that has very streamlined gameplay. There's a lot this game offers, especially when you come to expansions and things you can add to it. That part is one of the best draws, I think, with it. The other things I like is if the main person who is running the game knows the game inside out, it's very easy for a novice to come in and learn how to play this game. And the fact that somebody can drop in and drop out of the game very easily also means it's a pretty nice party atmosphere game. At the same time, it's great for people who like to play a lot. The other thing I like about it is there's almost RPG-like elements to it without having any of the rolling up a character or having to learn a whole bunch of rules and stuff. Ideally in the game, you're going to have your character, you're going to run around point A, point B, try to get all these different items and stuff to add to your character, almost like leveling it up, it feels like.
Yeah, you get additional items, you can find weapons and other equipment, books, and other sort of things, so you can become better that way, or even increase some of your skills as well. Just like you said, like a role-playing character.
Which is nice. And then you have that end boss. The thing I like about it also is there's a finite end to this game. Eventually, but if I kill the vampire, that's okay. I can go through and fight the Scarecrow next. I can fight. There's a host of villains in here.
Yeah, the base game comes with 4. Each big box expansion comes with 4, and each little box expansion comes with 1. So there's a lot of different villains you can play against. Plus, Flying Frog also has villains that they've released online only. So there's, I believe, 4 villains out there that you can find on Flying Frog's website to add into this game. They're official villains. Plus, a lot of fans of this game have created their own villains. So I have a list of 24 different villains for this game, and each one has different minions and everything else, so it's got just massive replayability.
Another thing I like about the game a lot is if you die, you can come back. You're KO'd, you'll get back up and whatnot. And also, you can end up getting another character or something like that. You can come into that that way also. So that way, you never have like an elimination from the game.
Unless everybody loses, yeah.
Then you lost altogether.
Yeah, and you lost altogether.
It's okay. One of the best aspects of the game, too, is the flavor of the game. These guys did a really good job making this dark atmosphere for you to roll around in. It feels just like when you're playing the vampire, if you're in a Dracula movie, and you're going through and trying to do all this stuff before you actually get to Dracula. You got to beat all his minions and stuff. So
it's even though people might dislike the word, it's a very thematic game. It has a good feel for each villain. You don't feel like you're just playing another version of the same villain each time you play. Each one feels completely different from the other. The game is just, it has so much theme and atmosphere to it that it sucks you in.
Yeah, totally agree. At the same time, very simple rules. So I can get almost anybody probably to play this game because, you're rolling a dice, you're just moving from point A to point B. It's in the discovery where it adds the interesting parts of the game.
Right. It is a roll and move game, and some people really dislike that particular aspect, but it keeps the mechanics simple so that you can pay more attention to encountering the corner locations and finding new and interesting things. And those corner locations, they're not all good. I mean, there's a lot of challenges, as evidenced in our little example of a turn. You can fight against things in each corner location. Each one has a different feel to it. So you're going to have wood encounters in the old woods, and you're going to have more dark and sinister encounters in the abandoned keep, and more homey type friendly encounters, but not all of them in the manor. So there's a lot of different variety in each of those corner locations that you go to.
Which is nice, and that's just the base game. You add the other ones, then they all have their own flavor. You have like the shipwreck will have things relevant to that. It's always relevant to what's going in there. A lot of thought went into what's going to go to the different decks, I felt.
Right. And even with all these expansions, I own all of these, and I have not had any game go longer than 3 hours, even with all these included in. So it's a very playable game that is really fun and enjoyable because it's so different each time you play. You're not always playing against the same villain and the same minions, and you're not always having the same cards come out, because there's a wide enough variety of cards in here. You may play 3 or 4 games and never see the same card come up again.
That's another important thing about the game. It's just the sheer number of players you can play with this game. I mean, it's a really short list of games that can play 12 players or more. And this game can do that, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, you get 8 players in the base game. You get 4 in each of the expansions. So all told, you've got access to 20 plus players, and you can actually play that many. I've run a game that had 12 players in it. We played in teams, and so 6 players on each team. It worked really well because it has a nice blend of a competitive and the cooperative. Everybody on your team is trying to help you. You're all fighting against the villain. The villain's stronger because it's counting the number of people on the team, but the other team is fighting against you as well and throwing out difficulties in your path towards victory, trying or hoping that you don't actually defeat the villain before they get a chance to defeat the villain.
Yeah, it's just with the gameplay and everything else. Honestly, so I don't own this game myself. If Phil didn't have every single expansion, everything else, I'd probably own this game. But I know I can just go bug Phil to go play it. So. And he probably would never turn me down to play this game.
Yeah, this game is extremely enjoyable. It's actually one of my favorite games, and I have to admit that my very first game, A Touch of Evil, was a gift to me by a complete stranger. They basically purchased it and mailed it to me as a complete surprise gift, and I've just been completely swallowed up by this game. It is so fun, so enjoyable, so different. And I've played other games from this maker. I've played Last Night on Earth, which is basically the zombie game, and I've played other versions that have come out, and I find this one the most enjoyable because of the sheer variety of villains and minions and encounters and just the scope of the boards. I mean, when you put all three maps out there, you have Shadowbrook, you have the center area which has the Forgotten Island on it, and you have the coastal town of Tidewater. It all just adds so much to the game, so much depth, so much story and enjoyment, each with its own unique flavor. There's new elders that come out. There's additional sub-villains, I guess you would call it. They've got the Kraken that can come out in the game. He's not a major villain, he's just a little minor villain that can pop up and cause all kinds of problems. They have a ghost ship that comes out, and it's really, it's got so much to offer. It's really a good game.
Totally agree. It's a great game. I own Arkham Horror and a couple other games like this, and now comparing this to those and whatnot, I kind of like the simpler aspect to this one compared to those ones. There's not so much game that's bogging down the game, and honestly, I consider it good with Arkham Horror if I'm ending the game in 6 hours.
I've heard people compare this or contrast this as Arkham Horror Light. I've never played Arkham Horror. I've seen people set it up, and I have played other long games that people might consider very epic length, such as Twilight Imperium, and complete Twilight Imperium before the Arkham Horror game was finished. So this game plays a lot faster than Arkham Horror, and just by looking at it, I think even with the sheer quantity of cards and everything else in this, setup and takedown is probably faster than in Arkham Horror.
I totally agree with that. The setup with Arkham Horror is pretty terrible, actually. So, yeah, great all-around game. If you're into kind of cooperative games where you all kind of work together and whatnot, I like playing it personally that way the best, I feel.
I agree. In fact, when I heard that this was a competitive game, I was really kind of torn on that aspect. I didn't feel it fit the idea of people against a villain. I mean, would you really fight against your neighbor when you've got a vampire or a headless horseman going against your town? Probably not.
Not the best call. No.
So I've played once in the competitive aspect, but since then I've either played strictly cooperative, where everybody's on the same team, or I've played team cooperative. So it's basically teams against each other, but you're still working together with your teammates to try and defeat the villain. So it keeps the essence of us against the villain. It is really nice too, in that you don't have to have a villain player in this game. The game runs itself, so it's you against the game rather than you against another person.
Yeah, that's a great part of this game. That's a real good draw, I think, for it also. So, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and go out and get this game. It's a fun game.